Hessel, welcome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So everybody knows her. They don't necessarily know me. They see me maybe a couple of times. And I'm Charles Blount with Pilates Style Magazine. And the more I do my job, the less of me you will see and the more of you you'll see. But until that time, I'm taking the place of you guys, and I'm interviewing the amazing, the incomparable Jillian Hessel.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course.
I'm thrilled to find out we're neighbors here in LA.
We are neighbors in LA. We talked several times, and then finally I got by and I got to see your amazing place and learn some of the history. And I had met you a couple of times. I know I probably met you at shows in the past, at like Pilates style shows when they were having them before. And I know I saw you last time at Sam and Susanna's at the Christmas
dance party. That was fun.
Mm-hmm. So you've been traveling a lot lately.
Well, I seem to have found my niche in Asia, of all places.
Love that.
Where they really revere the elders, and I am an elder now, 70 this year.
Did they give you your plaque?
They did. They honored me and Karen Klippinger at an event. And
I'm not surprised.
I did get a plaque of recognition of, it's my 44th year of teaching now.
Incredible.
So I can't say I knew very much 44 years ago, but it is a lifetime accumulation of many modalities of movement.
And so staying on the Asian topic, I know they really like classical Pilates.
Yes. It's incredible how many manufacturers of Pilates apparatus there are, for starters. Of course, China, but Korea has many, many manufacturers, and they're all different shapes and sizes, but there's been a real resurgence of interest in classical Pilates, and they really are hungry for information. But what I found most interesting, I participated 2 years in a row in the Pilates in Asia conference in Seoul, South Korea. And they brought in ambassadors from all the different Asian countries, and was quite festive. And person after person got up and talked about the state of Pilates in their particular country. And the emphasis has turned from staying fit to health and wellness and maintaining mobility as you age, and just being all round balanced, which I think Joe would be very pleased.
Yeah, that was my next question, is why do you think they're doing it? So it's more the health and wellness angle.
I think that Asia, I'm generalizing here, so forgive me, but it's such an ancient culture. And, when you think about how civilized they were in Asia when we were groveling in the dirt huts in medieval Europe, they've always had a thing for cleanliness, and it's just a different culture. And in my case, they revere the elders. So I'm treated very well. I'm quite tall. And with the silver hair, I'm like a beacon, because I tower over everyone standing. And then...
So you get a lot of attention.
I get a lot of attention. What's funny is when I sit, I'm all legs, because I was a Balanchine ballerina, and a short body. So I tower over everyone standing, and then sitting, I'm looking up at them. It's very, very funny. We always laugh about that. But going back to the apparatus, it's very interesting. You were asking about the classical approach. And I found that a lot of the equipment that's been modified for our huge sports stars and very tall, Americans are tall in general. And what I found is it's just too enormous for a lot, in particular of the Asian women who are quite petite.
Oh, yeah.
And the more classical apparatus is a better proportion for them, in fact. So I've kind of become a master of modification, depending on, what kind of equipment do you have? How tall are you? What's your proportions? It's all very important.
Amazing. And congratulations on those trips. I know you have a book that you brought.
Yes,
How old is the
yes.
book now?
The book was
The first
published in the
original.
early 2000s. I
Okay.
don't remember exactly. It was part of a multimedia package. It was really before the internet was big.
Yeah.
So we still had bookstores, and it was a multimedia kit with the book, which now looks
This
like
is one of
right?
one of the
Pilates?
big Pilates books. I mean, I put
Yes.
this in the top 2 or 3.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I wrote it with Gaiam and what was the publishing company? I can't even remember. It was a co-publication with a book publishing company in New York and Gaiam, which Gaiam International had a lot of yoga videos, but they wanted to get into the Pilates space. So this was envisioned to be a manual to learn Pilates mat at home on your own without a lot of props, just a mat. And they made a few little props that they were selling on the side, but it came in a box with first it was a VHS, then it was a DVD, and now it's digitalized with a meditation CD as well. So it was a multimedia kit to learn Pilates at home.
And so the new addition to this is they've now been
This
published in other languages.
Yes. It was published first in, let me see, this is Mandarin Chinese. That was in 2020. And I was very disappointed not to be able to go to China, but we were in COVID lockdown for years. So I missed my window, but they were the first ones to ask to translate it. Then in 2023, it was published in Korean. So that was part of the whole Pilates in Asia conference that I unveiled the book there.
Fantastic.
And now I forgot to bring it, but it's just come out in Japanese. And I'm going to both Singapore and Japan next year.
Amazing.
I've not been to Japan ever to teach Pilates, so I'm really excited.
I get the feeling you're going to love Japan.
Yes. Oh,
and they're going to love you. Yeah.
I've been there as a dancer, but not as a Pilates teacher.
Yeah.
And the person who helped translate my book in Japan is a wonderful Pilates teacher. So I'm very excited. We've known each other for quite a long while, and she and another colleague are bringing me out. I'm going to be in Singapore first. It's my third trip to Singapore, the
Amazing.
Pilates in Asia Summit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, not Pilates in Asia. I get them mixed up. Pilates in Asia is in Korea. This is the Pilates Summit in Singapore.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things I'm thinking as I'm sitting here talking with you is I know there are things that people are expecting me to ask you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like how did you get into Pilates? How did this start? So you're one of the ones that came over from dance. We talked a little bit last week about your history and who your teacher was and your direct line to Joseph Pilates. And we got into a bit of that. So
okay, well, I was a ballerina in training and just kind of had tunnel vision. This is what I'm going to do when I grow up, and got training very early at the School of American Ballet, which is the training ground for the New York City Ballet, the George Balanchine School. But I had a growth spurt in my early teens, and I was diagnosed with scoliosis. Kind of ignored it. Cut 2 years later, I was recruited by one of the Balanchine former principal dancers, wonderful woman, Patricia Neary. She had been a principal with Balanchine for many years, but he was kind of grooming her to become a director and also to work with coaching dancers. And she was ballet mistress in the ballet in Berlin, and then got appointed in Geneva, Switzerland, to run the company there.
Are you from New York?
Yes.
You're born and raised?
I was born in Manhattan and raised in Westchester County, which is just north of New York. So I was very fortunate in my dance training. I was able to commute into Manhattan once I got my blinders on, and that's what I wanted to do. And I had the build of a Balanchine dancer, kind of short-waisted in the torso and very, very long legs.
Well, as I was commenting a minute ago, clearly the scoliosis cleared up with the work you were you were
Well,
doing?
actually, when I was recruited by Patricia Neary to join the
Mhm.
Corps de Ballet of the Geneva Ballet, I was 18,
Mhm.
and I was on a full scholarship at a school called the Harkness School. We were Harkness trainees. It was a really prestigious place, and I wasn't really having trouble with my back, but when I was rehearsing in the Geneva Ballet for a jazz ballet, we had no Marley floor. That's that black stuff that they put
Oh
down.
yeah, Marley. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have it yet, and it was a wood floor, and I was doing some jazz move, and I did the banana peel whoosh, and landed on my tailbone, and my back just froze. I could not move, could not breathe, and I went to the doctor. He did an x-ray and he said, Mademoiselle, this back problem is not from your fall. That's exacerbated it, but you have this scoliosis, which I had been told but ignored,
Mhm.
And I kept dancing, but in the Balanchine style, it's very fast. And many Americans were recruited at the time because the European dancers weren't trained to move so quickly.
Mhm.
And so a lot of us were over there, but I just kept dancing. When you're a young dancer, there's a narrow window of how long you have to perform. And there was a lot of pressure to just
Yeah,
keep
you better
going,
go for it.
to
Right.
just keep going.
Mhm.
But by the time I got back, I went to the Frankfurt Ballet for a year after 3 years in Geneva. By the time I got back, I was in a lot of pain. And I thought, oh, I'm going to quit for a while. And I did go back to dancing, but my back problem didn't go away.
Mhm.
So I was in New York. I went back to college for a while. I thought maybe I would get a degree, Bachelor of Arts in Dance. And then I thought, why would I study dance when I've already performed professionally? That doesn't make sense. I was at NYU. They had a program called University Without Walls, which was great because I could get credit for my life experience
Oh yeah.
and sort of cobble together my own
Mhm.
degree. But intervening that, I got another job dancing and my back was just messed.
Hmm.
So a fellow dancer said, you should go to my gym. And I thought, gym, I don't want to go to a gym. I pictured gym class from middle school,
Yeah.
and we had to wear bloomers and I hated the outfits and I could never do anything. I was always like the last one to be recruited for, the kickball or whatever, I was
Brought back all the bad memories. It's like,
yeah.
oh no.
And I thought of the highly gleaming wood floor with the stripes painted on it and
Mhm.
trying to climb a rope. And I just was hopeless. So I didn't want to go to a gym. But finally, I was laid off from my dance job because I had been spoiled in Europe, by the way. They, year-round job, paid vacation, cost of living increase, Christmas bonus, pension fund, vacations, medical care. And here I was freelancing in New York, where you were lucky if you got a job long enough to qualify for unemployment. So I was on unemployment for the summer and I thought, you know what, this back problem isn't going away. I should check out this friend's recommendation. The gym turned out to be Kathy Grant
Wow.
at the Henry Bendel's department store in Midtown Manhattan. And so that was my first exposure to Pilates. Kathy Grant.
But what's so incredible about that story is this is what we've all heard. This is how, it really, everybody always associated Pilates with dancing. We know that was because of the Martha Graham Dance Company and how that whole thing kind of started and how he got associated with that. But we always heard this story about how they were working with dancers to rehab them and work with them. And you are that story. You are
Yes.
that personified.
I think about that a lot because
If I'm not right about anything I say, correct me.
Well, I will add that, Balanchine also sent dancers there.
Okay.
Romana was a student. I believe she was at the Balanchine School. I'm not a Romana trained person, although I met her and took workshops with her. But she was also a trained dancer. And I think about that because so many of the first generation teachers, among whom was Kathy Grant, and then, of course, Carola Trier and Ron and Lolita and Romana, and some who aren't with us anymore also lost early to AIDS. Robert Fitzgerald, for example. There was Bob Seed. There were so many dancers. I think part of the thing was it was like a little word of mouth thing among dancers to cross train, which was unheard of.
You're right.
Unheard of.
So what was the vibe like there when you first started
At Kathy's?
there? Yeah.
Well, Kathy's was very intimidating because I was sort of a young dancer with, not a lot of money. And you walked in through this off West 57th Street, right off of Fifth Avenue. And it was a very Tony, high-end department store. And you walked in and, high-priced items, and you took an old-fashioned elevator that had an elevator operator with the grate that you had to close, and he's operating it. But you got up to the very top level, and Kathy's place was behind the hair salon. When you got out, you were sort of in the hair salon, and then there was a little commissary to eat. But she was in the very back, next to the ladies' room, in a windowless room. And it was just wall to wall, weird looking equipment when you walked in. And her equipment, this is very interesting because a lot of the equipment now has these ropes instead of the leather straps.
Right.
And that's considered modern. But her equipment, which was built by Mr. Pilates for that Bendel's space, had ropes on the reformers. And it was kind of a brick colored vinyl. I never forget, the floor was white and brick colored check linoleum. But it was jammed. It had one Cadillac, one ladder barrel, and 2 Wunde chairs, and 2 reformers, and 2 mats. And Kathy pretty much taught alone or had one of her assistants teaching alone. It wasn't a multi-teacher place because it was so small. And so she did an assessment, and when she saw my rib cage, to be careful not to hit the microphone here, but she put her hands, we always say posterior to the back, lateral to the side, breathing. She put her hands on my back and side of my ribs and said, take a breath. And my scoliosis went like this: in breath, out breath, in breath, out breath. She said, that's it. You're not getting on any of the equipment until you learn to breathe evenly into both sides of your ribs. I had no idea what she was talking about. No idea. But it was frustrating as a movement professional because I'd been dancing so long. I thought I could see movement and replicate it, which is what we do in choreography for the most part. And what she made me realize was that the way I equate it, it's like there's a program in a computer and it has a bug. And my bug started so at the beginning that if I took a breath to prepare to move, I was already out of alignment.
Wow.
So why put me on a resistance piece of equipment where I was going to...
You're not there yet with the basic.
Right. So she completely deconstructed me. It was very frustrating. And it took me a while. She finally said, she was so dedicated. First of all, because I was one of her special people and she loved dancers and helped them, because she had been an aspiring dancer and we all need breaks, right? And so she'd come in early to train me before the studio opened. And sometimes I'd be there an hour and a half, 2 hours in this windowless room. You had no idea how much time had gone by, no clock really. And I'd get out on the street and go, well, where am I? What am I? Do I go right, left, east, west? My brain was in another place.
How intensive.
It was so intense. But then she said to me after, I don't know, a few weeks, maybe a month of intensive training, 2 or 3 times a week. Remember, I was on unemployment, so I had time. And she said, this isn't working for me. She said, every time I get you kind of into alignment, you go and you take dance class and it's gone. And I'm back where I started. She said, you have to stop dancing. And I was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
You're in your mid-20s and the clock is ticking on the career. And you're like, what? But I trusted her enough at that point that I realized I had to reprogram like the computer with the bug. It was like I had to take that system of how I observed movement and imitated it. I call it now monkey see, monkey do. Like the way we were taught, there were no privates back then, no coaching. Someone demonstrated it and you did your best to emulate it in class and in choreography. And it wasn't working for my body. So I had to stop dancing and really, really buckle down because I didn't want to lose Kathy's coaching. And that's when I really started to realize how off I was and how much the Balanchine work had been, in a way, a disservice to me, because with my scoliosis, I have a double S curve. Actually, I think I have a triple curve, but the pelvis isn't level. So one hip was higher and had more lateral rotation, which of course we're always doing in ballet, turning out. The other leg was lower and kind of medially rotated because the whole pelvis was rotated. So I couldn't turn out as much with my left hip. So I just forced it. I mean, what were you going to do if the work was to kick the right leg high and the left leg didn't go? You just forced it. So I was very off balance.
The show must go on.
Yes. And that was the whole mindset. So when I took that summer off from dancing and went back, I realized instead of if I could open to first position with the right leg here, but the left didn't go, I used to force it and grind the hip. Then I realized I got to bring the right one in and match where the left can go and work evenly, So at that point I was like, maybe I better go into modern because I can't turn out, And that's when I started my studies with the Graham technique. And that was an eye opener because in ballet at the time, we weren't merging contemporary dance with ballet so much. At least I wasn't, my training. And suddenly I'm learning how to flex the spine and all the posterior tilting that we do in Pilates started to really make sense. And the Graham work with the breath was so incredible because, in ballet, you're never supposed to be panting. It's all, very imperial.
Can you talk about that breathing technique for a moment? The Graham?
Well, it came from an exaggeration of how we breathe. And Graham kind of theatricalized it. But the idea would be on an exhale or a posterior tilt or a curve, like rolling like a ball, that you would deeply contract and draw the abs in. It's the scoop that we teach in Pilates. And suddenly I realized, that the breathing was so important. I started, when I went back to ballet, breathing in rhythm with my plies and my port-de-bras, and it all made sense. And then I did a workshop at one point with the Twyla Tharp Company. And at that time, Twyla Tharp was
I know
huge.
That name very well.
Yes. And she was choreographing something called the Catherine Wheel. And I
have a client that did a movie with her.
Oh my gosh. She drove those dancers, but she also was cross-training them. They got up in the morning and they went jogging. I was on a retreat with them and she worked them so hard. And I remember observing rehearsals. She was choreographing this Catherine Wheel piece, which was, a whole evening. It was amazing. And the dancers were huffing and puffing like steam engines, with the breathing. And I went, wow, this is really interesting because it kind of coincided with the Pilates work more in my mind. And then, so it went, my knowledge built and built.
So you touch on some interesting things there. And, one of them to me is, why is Pilates so synonymous with dancers? And that's because they were basically the rehab and the prehab.
Kind of the guinea pigs, yeah.
Yeah.
For him to expand. And of course they had a facility being very trained and very focused, which I'm sure Joe loved. He came from more of a fitness background.
Right.
The boxing and martial arts and some say circus, He was a strong man in the circus. He had to make a living too. So he had a much more kind of militaristic, linear approach to the work. I think the first generation teachers that studied with him kind of, modified it, which a lot of people don't agree with,
Mm-hmm. That's one thing I wanted to ask you about too. I found with some of the elders that some of them seem to be pretty open to modification.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I had to modify right away. I mean, Kathy Grant wouldn't even let me get on the equipment. She was using props. She was using hands-on. She used
So she was building it around you.
Yes.
So she was focused on what was good for your body and then moving and doing everything around that.
I think
it wasn't a rigid.
Correct.
Yeah.
I didn't learn like, you go in this sequence for quite a while because I had all this. She called it back in the day the warm-ups. She was like, well, dancers always warm up. You don't just run in and start with plies. You always get there and you stretch on the floor and you move your feet around and then you're preparing for class. So, we all had, I have a little notebook to this day, spiral bound with my scrawl in it because nobody was videoing, of course. This is 1981. So you didn't even have a phone, let alone dream about bringing a camera into the studio. And she expected us all to memorize our program. And I had a very specific warm up, but it was custom tailored to my issues. And years later, when Kathy and I were on the road up in San Francisco for a workshop, I went out to dinner with her and I said, I just want to thank you because not only did you give me back my dancing career, because the story is, that I was able to go back to performing.
That was my next question.
Yes. And successfully go back to performing and teach
Amazing.
Pilates on the side.
I mean, you are like, you're the classic example of
Yeah.
who it was for, what it was for, how it worked, and then what you did with your life and all that knowledge afterwards.
Yeah, but I wanted to thank her. I said, I just want to thank you because, I always give you credit. I try to remember because, of course, Kathy then sent me to Corolla Trier. And then when I moved to California, I met Ron and subsequently a lot of the other first generation teachers. So I'm a complete hybrid.
Yep.
But in this instance, I wanted to thank Kathy for teaching me and being, I said, I want to thank you for being so patient with me because, without you, I wouldn't even have had my dance career continue, but now I have my teaching career too. Right. And she goes, I'm not patient. I'm stubborn, and I was like, oh, she's stubborn. Well, okay, but I said, but I always give you credit, when I'm teaching something I learned from you, I'll say, this is Kathy Grant's rowing. And I learned this from Kathy. And she goes, but that's not mine. And I was like, my heart fell down into my stomach. And I said, what do you mean? I learned it from you. She said, that's your rowing.
Oh, wow.
And that kind of blew me away because the implication, as you were saying, everything was customized.
Yeah.
I really believe, and Ramana said this, teach to the client in front of you, right? So you have to get in their heads as well as in their bodies.
Wow.
And what blew me away was multiply me by thousands of people, who were taught by Kathy or Corolla or Ron
all
or
with their
Ramana,
own individual,
with their own way and customizing it for each person. So I thought that was the classic rowing, and it was my rowing filtered through Kathy's lens because my ribs stuck out and my shoulder came up. And
that says a lot.
Well, think about it. I mean, now Pilates is so popular and we've got roomfuls of reformers. There's no way to customize to the person in front of you. No way.
Yeah.
And we can't.
That's something I'm glad you walked down that road. That's something I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
It's like, I come from the exercise physiology world. I come from the weights and athletics and working with athletes and that kind of thing. And Pilates was always kind of daunting for me. And the older I got, the more I worked with neurological patients and understood how the body worked with the nervous system and got wired to itself, and you create this dynamic connection. And, I mean, dancers are incredibly connected, just neurological creatures. I mean, they're just specimens of how your body can hardwire itself and reap the benefits of that. And so the more I got to understand that, the more I got into and understanding Pilates. And but my point is, like, Orange Theory. You ever heard of Orange Theory?
Yes.
Okay. So if I go to Orange Theory, and this is kind of funny, but what I see is a bunch of people doing stuff in Orange Theory that don't know what they're doing, and they can't work with them individually. And it's kind of a contest. So they're all looking at each other and kind of competing with each other. And that can be kind of dangerous too. So I go in there with my background and my education, and I am, I'm going to protect myself. I'm not going to do stupid things. I'm going to do things right. I understand how to do them. But even then, I've been competitive with other people in the class, and I knew it was going to hurt me, and it did. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if someone is experienced, they'd be a lot better at those classes. And I was talking to somebody the other day about the reformer-based classes, and I almost put out a post, but I didn't want to get too much scrutiny. That's another thing we were talking about. And the post was going to say, you want to improve your Megaformer class? Take classical Pilates.
Yes, I think I saw that.
I put it up for a minute, and I got
Yes.
freaked out, and I took it down.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah, I did, because I was
saw
like,
it.
are they going to know how to take that?
Yeah.
But it's like, I honestly believe that. So you could apply all of that you're learning, your row that you learned from your instructor, and you could apply those things to these other things. And that was the way it was always meant to be anyway, is it was made to enhance other things you do. Enhance the dancing, enhance this. So I think it's kind of funny that we can apply in such a perfect way, classical Pilates to the reformer classes.
Yes.
And this is something that I've been talking a lot about with Pilates Style Magazine, is bridging that gap in some way. And we're going to do some fun things. And we're going to take Megaformer instructors, and we're going to put them into classical.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Yeah. And we're going to follow it, and we're going to see how that goes. But this stuff requires, look, the way you just described it, a lot of hands-on work with people that care about you and understand you and have the capacity and the understanding to read somebody's physiology and adapt the work around them. This was always kind of the daunting thing about Pilates for me as well, coming from the world that I come from. The world I come from, you ignore your body and you push through it.
Well, dance was like that too. I mean, you didn't ignore it. You took care of it. You nurtured it as best you could.
But it's what you described.
I still was sticking my feet in those point shoes, because that was part of the aesthetic.
Right. I think dancers are the most incredible athletes there are.
I would tend to agree with you that. And
so there's not a better example of a group to be working with.
Yeah.
It's true. Than dancers.
And the degree of dedication is unbelievable. When I moved out to Los Angeles, and I took some acting classes, and I see, actors are lazy.
I bet you felt that way.
Because, if you went out and partied and had class and rehearsal the next day, maybe you only had a few hours of sleep, and, that was going to be detrimental to your career. Yeah. It keeps you honest, and for me at my age growing up, friends were getting stoned and whatnot. And I'm like, well, I'm going to go home and take a bath and go to bed, because I have to work tomorrow. It's just my body, maybe because of the delicacy with the back issues and so on, I could not fool around if I wanted to dance, and that's what I wanted. So that kept me kind of on the straight and narrow. But yeah, you meet your body every day at the ballet bar, you're going to feel it if you drank.
Yeah.
You're going to feel it.
So imagine what would have happened had you had that experience and that teaching first, before the dance.
This brings me to posts that make me so happy now. I follow, of course, School of American Ballet, my alma mater from the Balanchine School, and they have a whole fitness wing with orthopedic doctors, exercise physiologists, Pilates teachers, weight training, and they are taking the very youngest dancers and starting them with those foundational things.
That was
And
the word I was going to use. Yeah.
I think that
Mhm.
that is so fantastic, because
Mhm.
so often I think if
Mhm.
I only knew, then what I know now with my
Mhm.
younger body, it would have been that
Mhm.
much more amazing.
Well, this is what. So from my angle, as a trainer, and I work with people with resistance training. Being lazy, that whole conversation, that reminds me of that. A lot of trainers don't want to do that work to really connect somebody to their body. It's like, and I had people telling me years ago, they're like, trainers don't cue like
Mm-hmm.
Pilates
They
instructors do.
count.
And it was, I think it was intimidating. And I think that's why
Mm-hmm.
some trainers had a problem with Pilates. But then all of a sudden we realize, hey, wait a second. If people are doing this work first, if they're doing the Pilates work first, they are so much better
Oh,
at
yeah.
the other stuff.
There's no question.
Oh, and we've
There's
seen
no
it
question.
over and over again. So I've had many conversations with trainers about that, and they're all interested in Pilates. And I feel like there are a few areas of Pilates that are going to, for certain, grow. Number one, it's definitely going to grow as a whole, and it's grown a lot even in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think men are a big sector that are
Yes.
going to emerge,
Yes.
and I think you're going to see a lot more of trainers getting involved and getting
Yes.
interested in it because they see these benefits and these things. And I put an article on the website when we first got the website up, and it's still up there. And it's why trainers should be better at cueing. And so I use some of the Pilates cues with people when I'm doing, and it makes a huge difference. And it makes it more experiential, which it should be. But for someone to be able to work on a reformer or a Cadillac with the right instruction and the right cues, and you're able to walk them through. I have another article I put on there where I described instructors as modern day shaman. Am I saying that right? Shaman?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I was thinking about the Asian connection we discussed earlier, and I'm also a student of meditation, and
That
how
makes sense to me.
very often when you're meditating and you're trying to get into that state, one of the things you focus on is the breath.
Yep.
Breathe in for 4, hold,
Yep.
exhale for 4, stay empty, whatever can bring that mental focus and slow down the noise. And we're all rushing everywhere now. And I think that Kathy's warm-ups were very useful to transition from, in New York, you come in off the street.
Yeah.
You did your warm-up, you're getting your body and breath in unison together, and then you take that focus into your workout, and it's like moving meditation if it's done well.
Yep. Yeah, I told you a little bit last week about it. I worked with a movement specialist, and I don't know if you ever crossed her path. Her name was Eleanor Gibbs. Did you ever cross her? Okay. So she and her husband had a clinic called the Clinic for Neuromuscular Diseases. And when insurance laws changed, they could no longer bill insurance for what they were doing. But the stuff they were into was unbelievable. And that's actually how I got more and more into Pilates and decided I had a real interest in it, is because everything she was describing was really validating from a scientific standpoint what he was doing.
Yes.
From and he was clearly channeling something. Like, this guy was on to some amazing stuff. And the exhaling in the parasympathetic nervous system, how it calms you down. But all of it has this way of connecting you to your body and hardwiring your body. And I had an experience like that at a young age where I had no concept of core. I had no concept of it. You being a dancer, you probably always had some kind of more connection. I was a very uncoordinated kid. And thanks to my dad decided to start dragging me to the gym, and it started to stick, and it changed my life forever. But I remembered the day that I did this ab thing, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but apparently I fell into something correct, and I got sore, and I'd never felt soreness. And I've never felt my core had a sense of it. No sense of it whatsoever. There was a void. There was literally a void there. There was nothing. So the soreness brought a sensation that then brought connection. And then I was able to work off of that. Now, what would I be like if I had never done that or had that experience I mean, there are a lot of ways to look at that, even down to like psychological and being self-connected and all of that, and it having a profound effect on even your mental state. But also, like as I'm sitting here right now, I'm protecting my spine with my core, so I'm not in an awkward position. If you didn't have that ability, I see people with degenerative scoliosis from the age of like 65 where they are just collapsing
Yes,
because there's
very much
no
so.
degree of connection.
Right,
And
right.
even like the roll down and
Mm-hmm.
segmenting, that whole idea, my teacher, Eleanor, was all about that because she
Mm-hmm.
believed that the more you were able to mobilize the body into big movement patterns, I
Yes.
was talking about dancer hands a little while
Mm-hmm.
ago. I was
Mm-hmm.
warning you. But like the bigger you can move in space, the
Mm-hmm.
more you can move in space, it creates a larger feedback between your brain and your body, and it enhances everything. And I'm a firm believer that the reformer is is a conduit. The way you operate it and work it, the way you move. See, I did it. The way you move one way while you're
Mm-hmm.
pushing another, it's like
Mm-hmm.
contra,
Mm-hmm.
to the way you would expect it to move. I think it has a profound effect on you mentally and has a way of wiring you with these basic movements that he did in the breathing and all that stuff. So I've been fascinated with it for a long time, but especially in that regard, where if people did that work first, see, we all believe you should be doing Pilates first before you do anything else.
Well, I think that it's the specificity. That's a word I learned from Ron. I don't know if it's a real word
It's a
or if
real word.
the specificity, I say the purity of the form
Yeah.
of the execution of the movement is paramount. The closer that you get from external to internal initiation. And, one thing we
Yes.
haven't discussed, but I find very useful besides hands on cueing is, or just verbal cueing, is imagery.
Oh,
And that's a way into each person's visualization, which of course in sports, now
right.
that we have instant replay and they can slow mo, well,
Mm-hmm.
why are we missing, for the
Mm-hmm.
baseball player, if their swing is off and they keep hitting, striking out,
Mm-hmm.
they can slow down a video of themselves and
Mm-hmm.
critique the whole thing. And I find that the imagery, when you hit the right image, you see the client's eyes just connect, and suddenly they're connecting to their body. It's hit and miss sometimes because
So this is a cueing.
yes, and I
So
think a
this is
lot
what
of
I meant about the shaman thing. It's like
right.
it's like you're there to guide them to where they
Yes,
need to
yes.
be, and
Hmm.
you're basing these words and these cues on them personally and what their experience is personally.
Well, and also I'm thinking back to what you're saying about science and all the research that's there now. I just
Yeah.
actually saw a post this morning. It was I forget the name of the teacher, but she's teaching a class on Pilates Anytime, and she's talking about just moving the eyes,
Yep.
up and down, and how that's already priming the body, the cervical
Mm-hmm.
spine to move and loosening things up. And dancers, to circle back to that first generation group of teachers that came out of Joe, um, there's a sense of visualization and projection that I think is invaluable. It informs the movement differently. The last time that Ron Fletcher taught at a big conference, he was 90. It was his birthday
Wow.
celebration, and he came in and he kind of hijacked Diane Severino. She mentored with him for 45 years, I think. She's still teaching. Amazing teacher, but he had her do a movement from here to here, and he went, well, but that's nothing, put something beautiful in the hand and lift it and reach.
Oh,
And,
wow.
the whole thing, the movement was
Yeah.
different, the recruitment of the muscles. And then, you were mentioning the reformer.
Mm-hmm.
We work and we stretch the spring.
Mm-hmm.
But then what most people miss these days in those group classes is
Mm-hmm.
the spring wants to recoil, open and close, and people ride the recoil. It's like in the gym, they get sloppy with the
Mm-hmm.
cable row. They work to pull, and then they just
Yeah.
go blah.
You got to
And
find that work in the
the
deceleration.
and
Yeah.
the eccentric
Yep.
which is more strengthening than
So, like
concentric.
the electric chair. I
you
love that
know.
part. I after
Yes.
doing that chair work for a while, I do the stair climber all the time, and I caught myself
Letting your heel come.
moving into these
Yeah.
extensions, like
Yes.
pushing through this full
Yes.
extension.
Yes, it's
And I was like,
totally
this is what
different.
it's done to me. You know?
I remember doing an
Mm.
elliptical trainer, and you go into the gym and people are bouncing up
Yeah,
and down like this.
yeah.
You're not meant to go up and down. You're meant
No.
to do what you're describing, just
Right.
kind of, stay smooth and really push and pull. And I
extend
think
your
that's
body.
missing a lot these days with people think loading up spring, oh, I'm stronger. I'm on 4 springs now. And they're just popping the springs. They're not
what it's supposed to
and
be.
one of the things that I always hate when people call the equipment machines, because in my mind, a machine is a labor-saving device that does something for you, like a vacuum cleaner, instead of sweeping, right? It's an electrical thing and it's a machine. But the Pilates equipment is called apparatus, and it's more of a partner, So when you get, and we were talking at the very beginning, all these different makes of equipment, you have to take a moment to find your partner. It's like if I work with somebody 6'5" versus, 5'10", as my dance partner, it's going to be different. So you have to meet the spring and kind of marry yourself to what that particular apparatus is giving you. And your workout may be a smaller range, or it may be easier. You don't know, but people are just kind of pumping the springs like weights. And even, coming from a fitness background, that's not even the way you're meant to work with weights. There's that mindfulness that's missing.
All of that right there was my favorite thing that you've said today. All of that was.
We could just cut now and put that piece.
Oh, it will be cut. We were definitely going to see that, but that just personifies the whole thing. It
does.
And in Western, and this is something I learned a long time too. You'd walk in the gym and there's a machine for chest, and there's a machine for back.
Yes.
And there's a machine for shoulder.
Yes.
And we separate and we isolate. And in yoga, it's connecting to yourself and it's you and just your body. But in Pilates, you've got these apparatus to adapt around the body.
Yes.
To condition. Feedback is one of my favorite words in Pilates.
Yes.
It is one of my favorite words because it ties into the neurological training. It was all about feedback and connecting and creating a larger sense of you and your space, and your big brain would feedback off of your smaller brains, which are in all of your muscles, the Golgi tendon organs, muscle spindle reflex mechanisms, and it enhances the entire system.
Absolutely.
You're wiring yourself.
Absolutely.
And then you take that wiring and you apply it to other things.
Yes.
And you're better because of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then there's the mental health aspect, the wellness aspect of just, we're always trying to multitask. And now we know scientifically that it's impossible to multitask. So we're having our focus here, and then we shift there, and then we come back, and then we're doing that. And it's so exhausting, and we don't really do it.
And we
well.
don't get anything done. We get none of it.
And the gift of, to me, the gym workout, the Pilates workout, is that you turn that off. And it doesn't always happen. Even I have clients, they come in and I have to keep my phone on. I'm expecting a call. And it's like,
my last client just watched TV the entire time.
Yeah. I've had, years ago, I had someone.
I'm just like, I'm just here to be here.
To mind. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know. It's very frustrating. And I've gotten to the point where I just don't want those clients anymore because I feel like I have limited energy.
That, and you're not being utilized.
Right.
Look at all of this, and you're not able to use any of it.
Yeah. And I remember, this is years ago, it was a house call client, and I'd come in and she'd answer the door in her pajamas. She wasn't ready to go. Then she had to feed her dogs. Then finally she'd get on the treadmill, which wasn't really part of my workout, but because I was there, she would get on it. And I would try and correct her form walking, striding, use your arms more, whatever. Oh, shh, she was watching the Today Show, and getting her news. And it was like, oh my God, I can't even correct her walking, let alone by the time we got to
I
the
recoil
apparatus.
because I know it well.
Yes. And then I always back off and try not to be judgmental and say, well, at least they're moving, I mean, what can we say?
Yeah.
They think they're doing Pilates or whatever, and at least they're doing something. But it's not giving that internal shower that Joe talked about. It's not giving your mind a break from everything else.
And I love that you talked about the wellness aspect of it, because the breathing and the connection. I'm an ADHD person, and when I do classical work, I come out of there just humming. Like I can just tell how primed I am, and I can tell what kind of an effect it has on me. And I know it's the breathing, and I know it's all the combinations of movement, and just the experience of my body as I move through these ranges of motion. It has this incredible priming effect for me. So I really see a ton of value in it, and especially, I think I told you this the other day. Knowing what I know now, if I go in the gym and just work out, that's kind of easy for me. Like to do that part of it, it's not that big of a deal. I mean, you could make it complex and whatever, but the real work for me is in the mobility work. That's where I need to spend my time and where I'm going to get more of the benefit from.
Well, that's the magic, I think, of the Pilates is we're working on stability first, but then we work on mobility. And it's so much more powerful when you understand that, first the core work and then moving out from the solid core. I was going to say, I don't think I finished my thought back to my dance training, that what I learned was from the outside in, monkey see, monkey do, but it's so much more powerful to work from the inside out. And that's kind of the best way, I think, to explain the classical approach to the work is moving outwards from a strong center, which again makes sense in the Eastern philosophies.
I love it. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have an original Cadillac in your house.
I do. So
you have an original Cadillac that was built under the guidance of Joseph Pilates?
Correct. It's all steel. It's very, very heavy. It's not aluminum. It's all irrigation piping with the corners that have been, they're like the corner pipes screwed in, and very, very heavy. So the story behind that is that after I'd been with Kathy Grant back in 1981 for 3 months or so, my unemployment ran out and I needed a job. And you have to understand, Manhattan is such a tiny, compact little island. I didn't know it at the time, but Kathy was on West 57th Street, and on West 56th Street around the corner, literally, was Drago's Gym with Romana, who I hadn't met yet at the time. But a little bit further west, towards the Hudson River on West 58th Street, was Corolla Trier. And Corolla was a good 10 years older than both Romana and Kathy. She was a student of Joseph and Clara Pilates for over 10 years.
Now, she's the one in your pictures, right?
Yes. I got sent by Kathy to Corolla. Corolla needed an apprentice to train as a teacher. And I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. And Kathy said, well, you can tell me what's going on over there, because she had used to teach for Corolla. As a matter of fact, there are photographs of Kathy working in a Corolla studio with young children. And anyway, so I went and interviewed with Corolla to become an apprentice there. And what's interesting, we were talking about, the one-to-one, the way that Corolla worked. And she was, by the way, a certified massage therapist, and she had been also a performing artist. She also had a dance background, wanted to be a classical dancer, and it didn't happen for her. She was a Jew growing up in Nazi Germany. She barely escaped. That's a whole long story. But she studied with Joseph and Clara. She had hurt her knee at an audition for Radio City Music Hall. And so he rehabbed her, and she asked after about 10 years, would it be okay if I open my own place? And
so after training with them for 10 years,
Mhm.
she then asked permission to open her own place.
Yes. And Joseph
It's a long time to
and
train.
Clara gave their blessing.
Mhm.
So this is, I don't know the exact vintage, either 1959 or 1960. All of her equipment was built under Joe's direct supervision. I don't know that he built it. I've heard that his brother Fred built a lot of his apparatus. But in any case, it's quite an interesting piece. There was also, she had a reformer, which I have pictures in a triptych poster of her doing the star on the reformer. And only Ramona and Corolla could do it so beautifully. They were very petite, both of them. And Corolla's apparatus, her reformer, was very small, built for her size. And Eve Gentry also was very diminutive in size. Another first generation teacher had also a very small reformer. So, it's an interesting thing to look at some of the giant stretch reformers now being built for the really tall athletes with longer springs. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Because when I get on the classical equipment and, they say, well, we do footwork on 4 springs. There's no way with my height and my long legs that I can get the reformer all the way out on 4 springs. I don't have the power, and the springs are too short,
Right.
So things do have to be, changing with the times, I think. And adjusting.
We've done a couple of stories on Kaylee Schiller working with the Kansas City Chiefs defensive line.
Yeah, they're huge.
And these guys are monsters. These guys are 325 pounds.
Yes.
And to see them in these ranges of motion, and they see all this value in it.
Right.
For their footwork and mobility.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, it's just incredible. Yeah.
So Corolla gave me, the first time I went to her studio to audition, and her studio was quite differently set up, by the way, than Kathy's, because she had teachers on the floor helping. By this time, she was in her 60s, and she had at least one, if not more, heart attacks. So she was not able to teach all the time, but she always gave the first lesson to people and new clients. So she gave me 10 lessons at comp, just so that I could know what it was like to be a client, what happened and how her studio worked. But the first lesson was very theatrical. She had a rolling mirror, and she would roll out the mirror every time there was a new client, and they would go together in front of the mirror, and she would do a postural assessment, which is kind of what Kathy did with me, but she didn't have the mirror, and, looking to see, are the shoulders level? And Kathy saw my curvature right away, rolling down like a standing spine stretch. And, Corolla would always say her famous thing was, so your feet, your back hurts? Let me see your feet. Because she knew that the feet were the foundation of the vertical posture, and she would assess. But what was interesting about what she did was it wasn't judgmental. It was sort of like a bonding experience for the client and the teacher to explore together what was the state of their body.
Yeah, it's like, let's introduce you to your body.
Yes. And so instead of feeling judged, you felt motivated to work on it, because this was the introduction to what, you wanted to improve. And Corolla would do that core stabilization, the powerhouse, we called it then, drawing the lower abs up and into the back and engaging the glutes. And then you'd see your posture would change right in front of the mirror, of course, to keep it that way and to train it. That's what we were talking about earlier, that you want to be able to carry that with you no matter what you're doing, carrying groceries, reaching for something on the top shelf in your kitchen or your closet, how do you walk up and down the stairs, all of that,
It's something for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing experience. It's a really smart thing to do for yourself.
Yeah. So I always try to do that with clients that come the first time. And I'm a talker, as you know. So usually I try and do a 90-minute workouts because I'm going to be doing the postural assessment and introducing the breathing and fundamentals, and before we get on the equipment, a la Kathy, and I want to get the experience of them getting on the equipment as well.
I love the idea of people coming to your place and working out on an original Cadillac. I just think that's so cool.
Well, the cool story about it is when I moved out to Los Angeles, I needed a job also. I was working for a personal trainer who was doing circuit fitness. And that drove me crazy because you were supposed to do 2 sets of this and then go back on the, on the bike or on the treadmill and get your heart rate up, and upper body, lower body, back to and they were rushing through this circuit without any attention to form.
Right.
No form.
Yep.
And the teacher kept saying, well, Pilates is okay for rehab, but you need to get the cardio. And I've never felt that for a beginner, you should work that fast. Yes, the goal is to get a sweat up and go through the system, but why do it fast when you don't have the underpinnings?
Inside out.
But I needed another job because that trainer that I worked for wasn't real happy with my circuit training. I was teaching Pilates with the weights basically and slowing them down and getting them destabilized, and she was unhappy. So I was like, I need another job, and I ended up at the Fletcher studio.
Amazing.
And they had a bank of reformers, not dissimilar to the group classes that they have now, but there were no group classes. People came in and they did their workout. More or less after the first few lessons, they had a placard of, the classical order or the order according to Ron that they did. And there was an electric chair there and a Cadillac, but nobody really knew what to do on the Cadillac. And it really bothered me because everybody thought Pilates was either the floor work or the reformer. Primarily, that's the way it was in the Fletcher studio. And so Balanced Body was Current Concepts at first. Ken Endelman's company now, multinational, wonderful equipment. He had never built a Cadillac. This was back in 1988. Corolla retired, and I said, I don't care what it costs. I want to buy one of your Cadillacs. She had 2 when she retired. And I said, I'm going to unscrew all the irrigation piping and ship it out to LA because nobody's teaching Cadillac and I miss it, So she sold me her Cadillac, and my dad and I went into her studio in New York and unscrewed it and shipped it out with the reformer that had been built for Corolla. The little reformer came in this huge shipping box, all the pieces. And Ken drove down. He had just moved from LA up to Sacramento with his family to have a bigger factory. And he came down to LA, and we agreed he was going to take the Cadillac up to Sacramento and figure out how to build one. So the Cadillac that I have not only is vintage from 1959, 1960, but was the model and the prototype for if you have a Balanced Body Cadillac. It was based on Corolla.
I was standing next to one last night, and I was telling the individual that owned it that story.
Yeah.
He got a big kick out of that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it is really important. And I'm at the age now where I'm thinking, gosh, where's that going to go when I'm gone? Because I don't want it in a museum where no one uses it. You replace the springs and it works just fine.
That's amazing.
So we have to think about that because it should be used.
Yeah. I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon.
I hope not.
You are a true testament to the work.
I think so.
You're in incredible shape.
So, well, it's moving your whole life.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm
but
not
also
even...
like just you're a very intelligent person. You are a very smart and on it.
Well, thank you for saying that. I have a friend I've stayed in touch with since
you are
grade school.
You are very young.
I'm very what?
Young.
Oh, young at heart, as they like to say.
Yeah.
I have a friend that went to Yale after, we were in high school together and so on. And she's a a professional botanist, and she worked for the New York Botanical Garden, and now she lives in UC in Riverside. She is a tenure track professor of botany, and she's just, her whole family really smart. And I guess I was sort of, a few years ago, we spent Thanksgiving together, and she said, "You have to stop putting yourself down because, you're really smart." And I said, "Well, it's hard for me because I didn't finish college, and when I was coming up in the Pilates world, there was no certification.
Right.
When I started working with Corolla, it was like a medieval apprenticeship.
Mm.
All I was allowed to do was hold people's feet during footwork
Mhm.
and get them fresh towels, when they
Mhm.
were sweating. And I really had to watch, listen, and learn the more advanced teachers and Corolla. And that's the way I learned, But then I realized when I was working with that lady who had hired me as a circuit
Mhm.
trainer teacher, that I didn't know anatomy well, and I didn't know exercise physiology, and I didn't know human biology and vectors. We were talking about that, how the muscles
Mhm.
work. And I did find a wonderful program. This is pre-Pilates certification through the UCLA Extension Division. And I went one class at a time in night school. And I've got all these certifications, because I feel you should keep up.
Yeah, you got to learn.
You have to keep up. There's so
Yeah, the
many.
more I take, the better I get,
Yes.
And it's like if I ever go
Yes.
through a period of not learning, whether I'm too stressed out or whatever, everything suffers. I'm always better when.
But I must
When I
say,
learn.
from my lofty age now, I am learning more and more also to trust my intuition,
Yeah.
because there is that foundation of knowledge, a lifetime of accumulation from
Yeah.
my ballet and my modern dance. And I
Unbelievable
didn't
experience.
mention, but also Iyengar yoga has informed so much because they use props and they have a wonderful approach for scoliosis. But the props have informed how I work with my Pilates clients, again, because of the different sizes and proportions and the length and, strength of the springs.
Well, I think that's a real skill that not many people have at all. And they probably are listening to this and they're going, wow, that is where I should be, where they can look at somebody very subjectively and make decisions about the training that they're going to give them and how they're going to talk to them and how they're going to cue them and all these things based on who they are.
Yes.
And I think that, in the dawn of AI, you're talking about some serious job security, because a computer is never going to learn
No.
how to relate to somebody and their body and how to make them move.
Yeah.
So, Jillian, this has been amazing.
Thank you
so much for coming.
My pleasure. An
Yeah.
hour went by so fast.
I know you're a joy. You're amazing. And I am excited for everybody who's going to watch this. So I am super excited that we pulled this together.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And we will see you again for sure.
Thank you.
And,
we didn't even get to discussing your magazine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the Pilates is for everybody issue. And I think a lot of people didn't get that. That's why we had the bodybuilder on the front, is because they're a classical instructor.
Yes.
And they're from the bodybuilding world, and they use the benefits of Pilates as well, because it truly is for everybody. But we are going to be making some very big announcements in the next month or so about the future of Pilates Style Magazine. And we've got some big things coming up.
Well,
We're
I'm
very
happy
excited.
you're back, Charles.
You know what? When I discovered it was gone, I knew the community and I remembered everyone from my experience with them at trade shows. And I knew that nobody would be more appreciative than them to bring this back.
Absolutely.
And the right people are going to be behind it. And that's people like you.
Oh,
So
thank you very much.
Thank you again.
You're welcome. I'd curtsy, but I'm sitting down and I'm afraid I'm going to hit the microphone.
All right. Well, we will see you very soon.
Thank
All right.
you.
All righty.